I went to a concert when I was 4 years old. I heard a Brahms string sextet. From that moment on, the cello was the instrument I wanted to play, and then naturally, yes, it became what I wanted to do. I was born in Strasbourg, and this is where I started to play the cello. So I studied at the conservatoire of my hometown before I entered the Paris Conservatoire. And then later on I went to the US to study in Bloomington, Indiana. I was quite lucky in Strasbourg. The musical life was extremely intense. The orchestra was wonderful, and I was lucky to hear a lot of great musicians. I remember having the chance to hear Claudio Arrau, Yehudi Menuhin, Rostropovich, of course, and Pierre Fournier, and Janos Starker, and Isaac Stern also was coming every year. Through my first concerts, I was fortunate to play with Menuhin himself. To be able to work with him and play with him was a turning point. Musicians who had themselves a direct and strong link to composers. There was the case of Rostropovich, of course, there was the case of Menuhin, there was the case of Starker. These were the great musicians I had the chance to work with, and they had that in common, not only being great performers and pedagogues, but also always keeping the link and the relation to the work and the composer himself. This probably was the biggest influence for me. In 1988, I won the first prize and special prize of Bach interpretation in the Bach competition. Of course, being in Leipzig, in the city of Bach, and playing this music, which was always very close to my heart and very dear to me, was special. I first started to conduct when I got invited by the Zagreb Soloists and became their music director about 10 years ago. It was always some kind of interest that I had and dream that I had even as a child, but I focused on the cello. That was my instrument, and I had no other ambition at the time. But back in my head there was probably that interest because of the repertoire, and also because of what it means to share music with a larger amount of people. So this is how I started, and gradually I got other opportunities and started to also conduct larger orchestras. So this is something that came quite naturally, mostly asked by musicians actually, so which for me is very interesting and nice in a way, because it's the legitimacy for that is given to me by my colleagues, which I enjoy quite a lot. Life allows me, always will be a cellist. I cannot imagine my life without this instrument. Right now I feel quite fortunate that I am able to combine performing very different sort of repertoires, from Bach to contemporary music, in chamber music, as a soloist, and widening my repertoire through conducting. So this is what I would like to go on with. In a way, remain faithful to what has always been my relation to music, as demanding, of course, as possible, but also as wide as possible. Because I very much believe that doing contemporary music helps you renew your views on ancient music, and at the same time, repertoire is part of what I've been doing for forever. Teaching is also an important part. Facing young musicians and their needs and their difficulties and trying to help them is also something that is extremely rich and nourishes my thought on music and what it is to be a musician. I don't see any reason to change the general path that I've been on, just hoping that I am able to develop it as much as I can, but remaining faithful to those principles of having an open and varied approach of what it is to be a musician.